Did I ever tell you one of the things that I guess it was encouraging and also discouraging was that an Augustine scholar made the comment that at the end of Augustine's life, he was extremely disappointed at the lack of progress he had made. And that's Augustine.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's, we probably are making tons of progress, but then as we see more and more sin, we're just like, oh.
When you think of like all the controversies he went through, all the letters he wrote, all the things he probably thought I should have said, should have not said, shouldn't have thought. I think about even our recent experience in the church, like, I don't know. Like I see all the failure and lack in me, and
I don't know that any of us dealt that well with it, to be honest. At least I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, me, but
yeah, okay.
The most mature one in the room.
Right. I mean, I just fire off a few Facebook posts. That's it.
And no, you do YouTube videos.
Right. YouTube videos and blogs. Let's stop tearing each other apart with our blogs and YouTube videos. Everyone who doesn't have a blog and YouTube video.
Does April know what we're talking about?
No, probably not.
I can just imagine and surmise.
Okay.
It was a sermon preached by another church.
Speaking of a sermon on anthropology and the answer to evil.
Wait, are you introing into the next thing? Hold on. Can you move the fan actually? Because it's like majorly drying my eyes out. I'm like tearing up.
You know how you fix that?
How?
You blink.
I know, but when you're on camera, you don't want to do it too much. Otherwise, you're like, look like you're on meth or something. If you're
okay, I've never.
I blink a lot, and I notice when I watch the videos back, I'm like, oh, this is. I do. I blink a lot.
You guys notice your blink rates?
I didn't actually notice that you blink a lot.
I do. I blink a lot.
Well,
I think I must have dry eyes or something. Now you're gonna really notice.
Start using like Visine during these or something.
Is that in these, or is it the ones where we have like the sun right in our eyes through the window?
I don't know. I have to like rewatch and re-listen to all of them because I have to make the thumbnails and write the video descriptions. And then whenever I see, I just notice. I'm like, stop blinking. It's so.
That was like 15 right there in that sentence.
Okay, now. I wish I never said anything.
Me too, actually.
It's like if no one notices that you have a big forehead or something, and then you tell people, and they're like, "You really do."
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway.
Yeah. April's like, don't look at me.
April, you ever thought about bangs?
Allison did mention that the dynamic with us when we're together is a little bit different. So we do need to actually try to do, I don't know, maybe at least one together within a span of a.
Oh, you mean in person?
Maybe like once a month or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think part of the struggle is that I notice when I'm watching them back that we all step over each other's lines more when we're not in the same room.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to see one another. Like I can't see you that clearly. You're very little on my phone.
Right.
So you can't get like if someone's, kind of opening their mouth because they're going to talk. Yeah. I can't see any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't have the body language going on. And I think there's even a delay probably somewhat that kind of messes everything up. So anyway, I mean, I still think they're good, but I think we don't want to lose the other dynamics. So maybe just once a month we can try to figure it out.
Yeah. We don't want to lose the cheers feel.
Okay, can we start the next one so that I can go to bed because I have to be awake at like 5:30 in the morning.
Why?
So.
Why?
You have to be awake at 5:30?
That's what time my baby wakes up.
You can.
Well, Emmanuel can wake up a little bit later if he wants.
When does he wake up?
Emmanuel leaves.
She just said my baby.
Oh man, That one took a second. That was funny.
Manuel leaves for work at 5 a.m.
Oh, okay. Well, is it his fault? Is he wake? Does he wake the baby up?
No.
I thought you were gonna say how great a wife you were, how you got up and made him breakfast. And,
Yeah.
And now we're like, oh no, you're just like, yeah, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
I would. Well,
Look at the
first of all, he doesn't eat breakfast. Second of all, I would have to wake up at like 4:30 to make breakfast for him.
Well, if that's what your wifely duties call you to.
They don't. So.
Not yet.
All right.
Well, Paul Atreides was waking up at 4 a.m.
That would be the worst transition in the history of transitions.
Well, the Holy Wars, they start at dawn, so.
Spoiler warning. The following video contains spoilers for Dune, Dune 2, and the books that follow the events of the movies.
All right, well, we're backstage. We're restocking the cantina now, and
we're all wiping the counter down.
We're cleaning up. We're restocking the drinks, and I think we wanted to talk about a movie. It's not a trilogy, right? It's just 2 movies, I think. But
is it just 2? Are they not continuing?
I don't know if they're gonna go into the Holy Wars or not.
They have to
They
continue.
made so much money. There's no way they're not going to make another
story.
one.
People that haven't read the series might not understand what would need to happen.
Have you read all of them?
I've read all of Frank Herbert's novels. Yes.
Oh, you've read all of them. I've only read the first one because my grandma told me that the other ones were bad.
Let me just start with this. Frank Herbert is not a good storyteller. Not a good storyteller. He's a fantastic world builder, but he can't tell a story. He thinks
he's another George Lucas.
Yeah, but like a smart one. He's like a scholar version of George Lucas. He doesn't know how to flow things, but man, he can get the concepts are good, right? He understands the depravity of man. He understands the nature of humanity, and in his mind, like what is good about it, like what is true to humans. Because really, I think if I were to surmise Dune, and if any Dune fan who has also read the books and is like a fanatic hears the synopsis, they'll probably go off the handle.
None of them are subscribed or paying for Patreon, so they're not going to hear it. So don't worry.
Yeah, that's true.
Say whatever you want.
All right, I will. It is a polemic against transhumanism. That's what Dune is.
That's not what Frank Herbert would say, but go on.
It's not what Frank Herbert would say, but at the end of the day, it's what it is, because the story is how the trajectory of humanity is going to kill itself, and there must be a savior. There must be a savior of humanity to keep it human, to stop it from turning into some kind of different whatever it was turning into. And the spice was kind of the catalyst of that. The spice made people live longer, right? The Spice Guild. I mean, they were humans once, but they were so disformed and disfigured by continuous spice exposure that they were no longer. You couldn't even tell they were human anymore, right? And because that's the nature of humanity, there must be someone that can control it, right? So humans are always going to go towards destruction. So you have to, and this kind of goes in like Thomas Hobbes, if everyone's ever read like Leviathan, is this idea that because humans are bad, humans are evil, and they're going left of themselves, they're going to just kind of go to non-being. You need to have someone that will sustain it. And for Frank, it's not Christianity. It's really Cain's world. Like if you look at the story of Cain and Abel, it's like how Cain would think humans should remain humans. Not Seth's line, it's Cain's line. And that's only possible by tyranny. Tyranny controls humanity. And if that's, did I freeze? I did.
You did, but we can still hear you.
Okay.
Your voice is still there.
All right. Alexander, like, make me a Dune GIF or something.
Make him into a worm with just
Make
the
me a
Drake
worm.
head.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
With Drake in the center.
Yeah.
The sandworm and then Drake's face.
That'd be that. Then I would be Leto Atreides when he's the worm in the third book. So you need a strong leader, and of course in the beginning of the first book, Dune, you have the what's the emperor's name? I can't remember his name.
I don't remember.
The Carano family, Emperor something, the third.
I don't remember.
Yeah, so he's the right, and this is a very feudalistic government or a feudalistic culture. So it's very medieval, but it's in the future, right? So you have fiefs, you have it's like a Holy Roman Empire. You have these majestic houses, and the strongest house kind of rules everybody, and you don't really own planets. The emperor kind of lets you rule them, but you have like your home planet. And of course, the tyrant feels threatened by a rising house, which is House Atreides, and wants to make sure that he remains in power. And of course, everyone thinks that tyranny is bad. Tyranny is bad. So we need a savior. And of course, we get our savior figure, which is Paul Atreides. And Frank's whole point is that humans are humans. There is no savior. You're just going to get one tyrant after the other. But not only are you're going to get one tyrant after the other. The point is, but you need it. You need a tyrant. You need one.
Yeah, in his system of dominion, that's the only way you can make sense of it, because it is, like you're saying, it is Cain's line. So you can only conquer by conquering. It is might makes right.
Well, it's very evolutionary, survival of the fittest. The top croc gets all the female crocs. The top ape gets to eat all the good food first, and it's whoever basically is the strongest wins, and he subjects everything else, and he creates order in these animal societies by basically being the most dominant and killing anything that's out of line. But what I find fascinating is that I think that even though it was not his intent, what he has done is he's taken this philosophy from what he sees in the world rightly. This is the way the world is structured.
Yeah.
And he affirms what the Bible teaches, what I think is the major point that God is trying to convey to his creatures in order to grow them. I think that's the point of this entire thing, which is nothing else and no one else can be God. And if they try, do we lose Drake?
No, I'm trying to fix the
oh, okay. And if they try to be God, instead of creating heaven, they create hell. So they don't create paradise, even though, in the movie, he's like, I'm going to take you guys to paradise and everything. Ultimately, what that means is the murder of everyone, because humans create chaos. So you just got to kill everybody. And I think what it's showing is what happens with the devil and the devil's world we're in. Well, you create hell. What happens when humans take that role? They create hell. They don't create paradise. And so all these systems whether it be Islam or like Marxism or anything that is constructed by humanity to create or bring about paradise, this sort of utopia, ends in the slaughter and bloodshed of numerous innocent people, and ends up toppling any sort of idea that you would have a utopia come about through this process. And so I think biblical theology is God teaching us, since he's the source of life, paradise only occurs when he is Lord of everything. And when he hands lordship over to people who think they're going to do it better, they create hell, they throw themselves into hell, and they create hell on earth itself. And so no tyrant, no false messiah, whether it be Antichrist or something else, no one is going to be able to create a paradise. Paradise is ultimately hell in that picture, not heaven. Paradise is only heaven when it comes to God. Now, obviously, that's not the point of the story. The story just gives us the one part, which is hell is all, basically arguing hell is all you can ever have. You can either have this hell that's more structured, or you can have a hell that's less structured.
Yeah, I wrote a blog post about this, like, I don't know, years ago, that was about how the eschatology of progressivism is essentially tear it down, tear everything down, destroy everything, and then we'll rebuild it.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what you see in Dune. It's all the Fremen have to tear everything down, have this huge holy war, destroy everything, and then we can work towards having our paradise. But we've got to destroy everything first.
Well, and I think, did you make this comment, Drake, that it's the anti-Tolkien?
Yes.
Yeah, he hated Dune.
Well, right, because Tolkien's whole point is that Sauron is doing this very thing, right? Sauron is Paul Atreides, right? He's the guy who thinks, I'm going to make the world a paradise. I'm going to make the world great. I can do it because I have all this power, and through power I'll bend it to my will. And there's, conversation about whether Saruman joins him, because Saruman ultimately wants to overthrow Sauron because he thinks he can make everything according to his will into a paradise and everything. And it's that same idea. But of course, Tolkien's answer to that is that no, ultimately peace and happiness and the utopia comes about by simply following the will of, I forget the name of the top god. What's his name? Illuminor or something? Anyway. Yeah, by following God, basically, because God's already set it in place. That's how it comes about, because God brings about those things, not individuals. Whereas Dune is arguing, I'm guessing maybe he doesn't even believe there's a God, or God's absent from the picture in some way, and so you don't have that counterbalance. So all you have are the Saurons, and you just got to pick, what's the best one.
Yeah, it's a weird. I think to C.S. Lewis, which is shocking because I don't usually think along the lines of C.S. Lewis, but the Screw Tape Letters, when he talks about like the material magician, the guy that ultimately realizes that the material world is not enough. There has to be transcendence, but there is nothing that transcends. So I have to create the illusion of transcendence to fill that niche, right?
Yeah.
So the material magician is this, and this is very even pre-Socratic understanding of the fate as the river, right? Fate is this immaterial thing you can tap into, and you tap into that through spice, which takes you to this realm, right? And you can truly see the future. So you're tapping into the universe, something that is allowing you to see material outcomes that could happen if you do A, B, and C. And the whole point of like Paul, being the Muad'Dib, and then also being the
Lisan al-Gaib,
which is like the first male Bene Gesserit, is because the Bene Gesserits can do that. That's why they're eugenicists, by the way. Bene Gesserit are eugenicists. They control birth lines, right? It's the again, it's Cain. It's like you have the promise in Genesis 3 that the Savior will come through the line of Eve, right? That there'll be enmity between her seed and the seed of the serpent. Like, it is the anti-cult where like, oh no, the devil will control the birth, right? And they'll create their own kind of savior. So he's the first one that can actually see the future, and he taps into that through the spice. And then, so like, it's this weird meshing of transcendence, but that's not connected to a personal God. It's connected to some like force, right? And this is, we made the joke that this is the smart George Lucas, but that really is where George Lucas got the idea.
This is where Star Wars came from. It came from Dune.
Well, isn't it essentially that it's not even, are they really tapping into a force, or is it human evolution? Is that the idea, to where they're evolving to become more godlike themselves?
Well,
or is there a deity?
Well, so no, there's no express deity, but there is like there is something transcendent, because like Leto, which is Paul's son, who sacrifices himself. He's the Antichrist. He sacrifices himself to become a worm, to be the transhuman that he's trying to avoid, because he's trying to follow the golden path, which Paul saw and rejected. Paul's like, I saw what I need to do, and I don't want to do it. His son saw it and was like, I will sacrifice myself to do it. I will be humanity's scapegoat, because everybody hates him. He's called the tyrant, and he rules for like 3,000 years. It's very premillennial ideas of ruling for 1,000 years. And even it's funny because even in the series, chapters will open up with quotes from Revelation. It's it's on his mind. It's on Frank's mind. It's crazy. So
I think he got the theology correct, that creatures disconnected from a right relationship with God are chaos.
Yeah.
And therefore that's what they produce. They cannot produce anything else. Therefore only God. Well, that's the problem. He doesn't have the therefore, right? We as Christians have
he
to
only has that.
We as Christians have to come up with the therefore, that therefore only God can create paradise. None of these tyrants are the solution. They're the problem.
What's interesting is in the last book, there's actually a Jew. He's
from Nazareth.
He's identified, huh?
From Nazareth.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. From Earth, like lineage from Earth, because Earth exists in the universe. But the old Jewish religion, he even brings it up, right? He goes back into what they understood, what Frank understood Jews to understand who Yahweh was, and it's presented as just another one of the tyrants. Right. So Yahweh was like kind of one of those things, and we've just moved on to the next and 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 the next, and you got this Jew, this like relic, who points you back to almost the original tyrant, right? And it's like, yeah, there it is. Like it is.
That's the atheist view of God, is that he's a tyrant, rather than trying to communicate this message that we're all the tyrants. The devil is the tyrant, and God's trying to liberate us from tyranny.
Yeah.
It didn't help that he was also on mushrooms, and he was I'm being serious. He was really into mushrooms. Like, it was a part of his philosophy. It was a part of his allegories with the books. Like, he was really into it.
Well, it makes sense that spice, the drug, then is central.
Yeah. Yeah, he was really into it.
Yeah,
I do think it's interesting. Now, you had mentioned this to me, Drake, that the girlfriend,
Chani,
or the wife, you mean?
Well, I thought the queen.
Chani, yeah, Chani is like, she ends up being the concubine, right?
Right.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. She ends up being the
So
concubine.
Princess
and then
Irulan is
Princess
the
Irulan's the
wife.
wife. Yeah.
yeah. So in the movie, that's changed, right? Like it's she, because she goes off and she's like against everything, and she's like the rebel. She's the feminist rebel, right?
Mm.
She's the contrarian to everything. But you told me in the book she's totally not that at all.
She's a fanatic she's as on board with Paul being Paul being the Muad'Dib. Yeah.
I thought it was an irony that the movie did that, because feminism, because she's supposed to be the model feminist, right? She's independent. She's not going to be ruled by anybody.
Right.
But feminism is a type of Marxism, which ultimately then, like, you have her representing the same type of ideology, rather than being contrary to it. In other words, she's supposed to be like against Paul, right? But in reality, all it is she's of the same mindset of Paul. She just has a different system of the tyrant, right? It's ultimately who is whose system is correct, but they're both the same system. You see what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the Patriot quote, right? Do we want one tyrant 3,000 miles away or 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just, feminism is essentially, it's a branch of Marxism. It's the idea of the oppressed oppressor, that whole thing. But the irony then is in the movie, they want to paint her as against Paul and this whole system because of, it's tyranny and whatnot. But ultimately, it's the same thing. It's just whereas the book to me would be more consistent. She's on board with that philosophy because she's a fanatic. She's part of it. She's not contrary to it, and that makes sense. She wouldn't be, because she's on board. So I just thought it's interesting. Like, if you really wanted a contrarian, you'd have like a Christian in the film. You'd have somebody who was like actually believed in God, and therefore it was against tyrants and things like that. But the problem is he doesn't have that worldview, and even the Hollywood doesn't have that worldview. So to them, the person who's against tyranny is yet another person of tyranny.
But there are so many inconsistencies in their points of view, because the reason that they can't have Chani be a part of it is because then in the book she becomes his concubine, and that is just unacceptable for the feminist, even though from the progressive left we're supposed to all be on board with polyamory and think that that's great.
Right.
But then also not. I mean, the inconsistencies are just, they're rampant.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was so committed to the cause that she dies in the last battle with the son, their first son.
Yeah.
So she doesn't even make it to the end. But what's so one, I know I watched the interview, the director, and they asked him why Chani was almost the antagonist of the story, and the director was like, well, we didn't know any other way to express to the viewer Frank's point of the story.
How so?
Well, Frank's whole point is what Chani embodied.
Yeah.
And Frank said this himself, right? I mean, it is to be wary of the salvific, the one who is offering you salvation, even if they do have special powers, right? I mean, this is pointing to, like, don't believe Christ because he can do a bunch of miracles. Right. I mean, Christ brings as much. Look what religion brought. It brought chaos, right? And Christ is to blame. That's what he's trying to show you, and you're not going to get that by reading the book or watching the movie, even, because if he allowed the characters to be the characters of the book, you would have. Again, Paul does look like a hero, and the emperor is like the emperor is Biden. It's like
right.
He's like a frail old man, doesn't know what he's doing. He's failing.
Well, when I went to go see the movie with you, I didn't know any of this like backstory. So just watching the movies, I was like, all right, great job. He took it over. Great. Well done. Pat on the back. And then you told me the backstory, and I'm like, oh, if everyone would have known that, no one would have been rooting for him.
The Emperor was better.
Yeah, they would have been like, man, I hope the Emperor gets him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And again, at the end of the day, like when his son Leto becomes Emperor, his army is a bunch of women, warrior women, who are like lesbians and
bunch of JLs.
Yeah, bunch of JLs.
I am so thankful for my grandma now, because she read all of them, and I read the first one. She's like, "Do not," and my grandma is very feminist, but even she was like, "Do not read the other books." She's like, "They are garbage."
Yeah, it basically. Yeah, there's like a sex cult, and again, it's complete depravity, and it's all to try to save mankind.
Well, that's common in tyranny as well, right? Because when you have a tyrant, he wants to multiply himself, so he'll take whatever women he wants. He'll take other people's women. It's it's that sort of thing.
Brian, I sent you that the video you had already watched, because you're such
Sauron
a Tolkien elitist. The one on Sauron, like Sauron, like he saw everything as chaos, right? He saw like human freedom as chaos, and I thought like that guy pictured it so well. Like after the defeat of Sauron, you could see his like skinny, decrepit body with his like his crown that doesn't fit him, and he's just weeping because he can't do anything.
Yeah, he's blown away by the wind.
He's blown away by the wind, right?
What is this video that no one sent to me?
I'll send it to you. It's actually really good.
Okay.
But I think of like Frank Herbert as like kind of like as a Sauron himself. Brian, you made that point of like in his world, everyone's a Sauron because there's no alternative.
Right.
But like Frank himself, like he sees the world around him as just utter chaos.
Yeah.
And he's going to offer you his solution. And teach you a lesson and make a lot of money doing it.
But that's why Dune falls short compared to Lord of the Rings, because there is a distinct good versus evil in Lord of the Rings. It's also why Tolkien hated Dune. Maybe hate is too strong a word. He did not like it.
He said, I read Dune and I disliked it with some intensity.
Yeah, he didn't like it. Yeah. Because Dune is, it's beautifully shot. It's very pleasing to the eye to watch.
It's very well done.
It's very, very well done. Apart from some glaring plotting and pacing issues. But there are but there are no heroes. It's just nothing but villains.
Well, I think there's something intuitive about it as well. If people were to know the whole story of Dune, and then the whole story of Lord of the Rings, when you know the whole story of Lord of the Rings, you get done with it, and it leaves you with a peace, right? You if you know the whole story of Dune, after Drake got done telling me that, like I wanted to throw up.
Yeah.
Like it leaves you with that's something is wrong. That's not correct. Like just intuitively, there's just this sense of, again, because I think God has put all this into us to understand the gospel and everything he's done into all creation, including our consciences. I think we watch things like that. It reminds me of horror movies in the 70s, because in the 70s, I don't know if you've ever watched horror movies like in the 80s. So in the 80s, usually you have a bad guy and he kills people or whatever, but there's someone who rises up and defeats him. That's more like the gospel narrative, and there's a sense of like, oh yeah, okay, that's something's right with the world because someone rose up, defeated the guy, the evil, and it was defeated. But in the 70s, because you have more of the post-modernity come in, and I think that's what was affecting probably the author of Dune here. I forget what's his name again.
Frank Herbert.
Frank
Herbert. probably affecting him as well is that when you watch 70s horror movies, there is no defeat of the evil at the end. Evil wins most of the time. There's no defeat. All the people are defeated by it, and it endures. And it almost is that sense of like, it gives you the reason why it's horror is because it gives you the sense of something is wrong, something's not right. That seems like half the story. It seems like, where's the rest of it where the evil is defeated?
I do think there's something good or valuable in that, though, when you're talking about contemplating different forms of art. I think that Dune has a place in Christian contemplation. In that one of the things that Christians should be meditating on and contemplating is death and judgment. And I think that those aspects, looking at, hey, you know, this horrible reality that exists in Dune is the reality that awaits you without Christ. That is something good to meditate on.
Well, yeah, and I think it's important to say that all of these are part of the story. And if you are a Christian, because you know the whole story, you can actually watch any of these and you can put in the puzzle piece yourself and understand that this is true. If you're talking about the world today and the way the world works and temporarily and all of that, the problem comes in when you're not a Christian and you watch these and you think that's it. That not only might lead to despair, or would lead to despair, it might actually lead to psychosis and like behavior that is incredibly unethical, because if there really is no meaning and evil just persists, then there's no good to aspire to, and there are no heroes. So just, you know, take from the world what you want. And in other words, I just think that these movies are bad for people who don't have the Christian narrative to kind of filter them through.
And that's where I think Dune does a good job, because it does understand the depraved, like the Harkonnen. I say Harkonnen, some people say Harkonnen. I played Dune 2 in 1990s.
I say Harkonnen.
Harkonnen. I played Dune 2 in the 1990s, and it was always pronounced Harkonnen. But so, if do you guys even know what that is? Dune 2. Oh, okay.
What is it?
It's like the first real-time strategy game.
Drake is really nerding out on Dune tonight.
Yeah,
oh, I didn't know there was a game.
Do you know, Drake, that this podcast is named after Star Wars, and you know you're kind of
hey, well this, well yeah, I mean you
Star Wars right now.
Well, you admitted Star Wars only exists because of Dune.
It's true.
And
Star Wars is the funner Dune.
Star
Wars is the friendly Dune.
Yes, it's the horror movie that the bad guy dies in the end, and you're like, oh, right.
Well, evil is overcome.
Evil is overcome.
Okay,
right?
but the evil in Star Wars, I'm gonna let you finish making your point, Drake. I promise.
Oh,
but
really?
The evil in Star Wars is comical.
We're gonna go for another hour if we talk about Star Wars.
It's comical. It's not even that scary. Like the Harkonnens are actually terrifying.
And that okay.
Well, I'm sorry that blowing up entire planets is not terrifying to you, April.
Okay.
Apparently, the genocide of entire planets is not really that scary.
Okay, well, because
scary music wasn't played when they did it.
It's just like a balloon popping. No big deal.
The burning of Luke's aunt and uncle apparently is not really traumatizing.
The skeletons laying in the stairway.
Sure, that's just business as usual.
You know what I'm saying? It's not as well done.
Well, it's not as
you don't get the feels.
Everybody knows in Star Wars the heroes are going to win. That's why it's not scary.
Yeah, that's why you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dune does a good job of displaying human depravity. Like the Harkonnens are utterly, like the whole scene with Fade Rotha in the arena with the prisoner Atreides guy, and then his uncle that did try to kill him in the book even.
Well, them eating people like animals
yeah,
is disturbing, and
right.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was pretty terrible.
yeah, I mean, you want to know why Israel went into Canaan? Just
there's a
put the
preview.
Harkonnen. There's a preview.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the Harkonnen to go down, and Dune does a great job of displaying human depravity, and everyone identifies with it. That's why it's so like everyone knows like that evil exists. It shouldn't. And then like Frank maybe giving you some kind of answer, and then in the end, Duncan Idaho, which is the true main character of the story,
the only one you actually care about.
The only one you actually care about, and the only one that's in all 7 books because he keeps getting cloned. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because the first one actually he does die, but anyway, at the very end he just fades away with the rest the remnant of the Bene Gesserit, who almost got wiped out by the Honored Montres, which is like a radically sexualized version of. Anyway, it gets really complicated. But he just flies off, and there's no resolution. There is no good over it. Like, yeah, they didn't get wiped out, and humans are still humans, I guess. But what else? The cycle continues. Cycle continues.
Well, and as much as we say, well, the Harkonnen is, people want to destroy them because they're depraved and everything. I think maybe one of the messages is also the fact that evil comes in a more acceptable form as well, a more noble form even. Because that's like explicit, clear evil, right? That's like I used to make this argument all the time. I think I've said this to you guys before, but I used to get in arguments with some of Allison's family sometimes, because I would say things like Married with Children, that program's not as bad as Seventh Heaven.
Oh yeah,
which most Christians like watching.
Yeah.
But if you watch Seventh Heaven, God is almost completely absent from their moral decision making and their daily lives and all that. And it's very liberal, and it's actually teaching people false Christianity. Whereas Married with Children is just explicitly bad.
Everybody knows it.
Right. Everybody knows it. It's right in your face. Even pagans know that it's not good. But Seventh Heaven, that's the wholesome religious thing. That's the devil killing people through something that looks noble. Whereas this is just in your face, and you can accept the evil or reject it, but it's wrong.
Yeah, this is part of. Go ahead.
No, well, I was just gonna say, and that to me is the contrast between the Harkonnens and Paul. It's just like it's two evils, one more noble and one just more explicit and in your face.
Yeah, this is like the argument that I have with people about Las Vegas, and how I actually would prefer to live in Las Vegas. I've lived in very small towns. I mean, I'm talking fewer than 400 people small.
Yeah.
And I would rather live in Las Vegas, because at least the sin is explicit and it's in your face, and there's no pretending. In a small town, there is so much depravity.
Yeah.
And yet we've stylized it in movies like, oh, you're living in a small town, and
the Norman Rockwell
going to church, and it's so beautiful. And it's like, if you've lived in a small town, you know that that's not true.
Have you guys ever seen the movie Funny Farm with Chevy Chase?
No.
So it's about a couple that moves to a small town thinking it's going to be that Norman Rockwell picture, and everyone is just messed up. They're just not like, no one cares about one another. They're horrible people. But it's that type of thing. We've idolized small towns, and we think that, oh, if I lived in a small town, that's better because it's a smaller community and you'll know everyone. And it's like,
and there won't be as much sin. It's Pelagianism all over again.
I grew up here in a high school that was in the city, and it was not nearly as bad as when I moved with Allison to her small town and I learned what the high schoolers are doing. which is tons of drugs and sex and everything. And
Mhm.
it's like you had a little bit of that at my high school, but not as much as it sounds like. Almost sounds like everybody involved in it in the small town. And it's just sort of like, well, what's better about the small town? It's an illusion
Mhm.
that people have. But again, like you say, it's the more noble evil that's masked under that illusion. And then Vegas is, oh well, we call it Sin City, and therefore, it must be.
And that is the question, like throughout the series, the main characters are asking themselves, because after Paul takes over and then does the genocide and is emperor, right? He's in Dune Messiah, he's a worse, right? He's becoming just like Emperor Carino or whatever his name is, if not worse. And then everyone after him is part of House Atreides, and there's this understanding that they're the house of nobility, like they're the honorable house, but they're slowly going down that path to like being the Harkonnen, and like, right, but we're the House Atreides though, we're the good guys, and
Well, I thought it was interesting. I don't know what these creatures are, but it was interesting how the movies at least portrayed the Harkonnen as animalistic, and then they had
they're
all these
humans.
weird creatures around them as well that seemed like half human
Oh yeah,
and half
Mhm.
something else. And it's just interesting how then the end of the story ends with someone becoming an animal.
an animal.
And it's from the noble house that eventually goes. It's almost like a flood story, right? Everyone's wiped out in the flood. Everyone's wiped out by this huge war. And you think that you're going to have paradise from that, but then depravity just continues
Mhm.
to degrade the world.
Well, that's the irony, because at the beginning of the story, Paul goes through the test, right? He has to put his hand in the
Mhm.
box, and if he removes it, they'll kill him. And in the book, and I think they say this in the movie too, he asks like, "What's the whole point of the test?"
Mhm.
And she literally says, "To make sure you're not an animal,
Yeah,
Mhm.
because an animal
'Cause
will nod its hand off to get away
instinctually.
instinctually."
Yeah.
And then he turns out to be an animal at the
And
end of the
somehow Fade Rotha passed this test.
yeah, he did, right? Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
How makes no sense.
Yeah, it seems to be a little contradictory. I don't know why. Is that in the book as well?
It's in the first book, definitely, when Paul puts
Mm.
his hand in, and like
Well, I
Drake is
don't remember
saying.
if Fade Roth.
No, I don't know. I don't know that Fade Rotha ever did it in the first
Well,
book.
that's
But
what I mean,
Paul,
because
yeah, I
that
don't
would
know.
seem contradictory because he is supposed to be animalistic.
Yeah,
You would
I
think
don't
that, I don't
remember
know.
him.
Well,
It's been a number of years since I read
yeah,
it.
well, again, the nun, what are they called? Oh man, I can't remember
Benny
the name.
Gesserit?
Yeah, thank you. It comes out that the Bene Gesserit, while look noble in saying that, are actually just looking for someone that they can control. So
Right.
they want the male version of the Bene Gesserit to be malleable,
Yeah.
and that's why they hate Paul, because he was uncontrollable.
Well, I mean, even in the movie, right? The mother says to the whatever, the mother, Benny Gesserit or whatever, you picked the wrong side.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And she said there are no sides.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's just them trying to control, again, the whatever tyrant they're picking, because it's all one
Yeah.
thing.
And the whole Jedi non-attachment thing, that comes from Bene Gesserits, right? Because they're not supposed to love; they're supposed to be detached, and
Yeah.
Fear is the mind killer.
Fear is the mind killer. Yep.
Mhm.
Well, love turned Anakin into the dark side, so
It's basically the Bene Gesserits are supposed to push down, even though they're called Reverend Mother and all this. It's like they're supposed to push down any nurturing, distinctly feminine traits. They're supposed to just squash them.
Yeah. And only the manipulative aspect of the woman is left, which is frankly we would argue is not always the worst, but for the most part the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, if you finish reading Dune and you're asking yourself, what's the answer? Well, Christ is the answer. because that is a accurate portrayal of reality as it is. But that's not.
Well,
the
it just
end.
goes to show that God has to become the human, because a human will create hell. God
Right.
himself must become the human king that brings paradise, because only he is the source of all life and flourishing. And so if you want to enter into paradise, it can't be through a human being and a human system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did have a moment when Paul climbs up, that kind of mountain or hilltop, and he's looking out over the army, and it's like they're gonna have victory. I did have a moment of just feeling like, man, when Christ returns, it's gonna be awesome, and it's gonna be so much better than this. It's gonna be the real fulfillment of this horrible, distorted shadow.
Yeah.
Well, they're picking up weapons, right?
Yeah.
We'll be putting them all down. Like it will,
Yeah.
right? Spears and the plow hooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. No more need for it.
No more need for
Well,
it.
and that's true paradise, right? Christ doesn't have to murder everyone in order to subject everyone. Now he does destroy his enemies,
The murderers,
but he turns the rest of the murderers into his people, into life givers, and they flourish and do well. He doesn't just, so in other words, creation takes place rather than chaos. Paradise takes place because Christ gives life to people rather than offering death to them. All we can offer is death to people. And doesn't matter how much power we have, doesn't matter how, he's got all the powers in the world in this book, right? He's got everybody's powers, even powers he's not supposed to have, like you mentioned before. And he still brings hell because we're unable to do what God can do.
Yeah, the myth of progress would have us believe that, thousands of years from now, or with increasing technology, or with the singularity, or whatever goalpost you want to fix, that we're somehow going to become more enlightened and more good and more true and more beautiful. And it's all a lie.
Well, look at like the Khmer Rouge. As long as you go back to nature, everything will be okay. And all it is a bunch of dead bodies everywhere. And then we have a modern version of that in terms of, as long as you use the right pronouns and you accept everyone's sexuality and no one ends up judging anybody anymore, you're going to have a perfect world. And of course, what that ends up creating is you judging others, canceling others, eventually leading to, again, murdering others again. Because that's what it always leads to. You get it, you get in Russia, they had to deny that any murders took place in Russia because they wanted to convey the idea that they had created paradise, and everyone's starving to death. There's crime like crazy happening, but it's all just a show, because humans cannot do this. It's got to be given to God alone. And that's the point, I think, of the Bible that we miss, and we just don't ever talk about that theology that I think overarches the entire canon.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it's interesting because in the lore, in Dune lore, there was another jihad prior to Paul's, which was against AI, right? So like computers and technology had reached a point where man no longer had to think anymore. And again, this is the transhumanist idea. Well, we got to go back to nature, right? And that's like the whole, and that's the Fremens, like the Fremen too, because in the first book they're like they're primal, right? They're tribalistic. It's hard life, but the whole point is like it brings resilience and teaches you how to live.
Yeah,
and,
this is the Jack London thing.
Yeah,
Like,
and
go out into nature and become a man.
Right, and as each book progresses, the Fremen go further and further away from that because now they control everything, and technology is growing again, and the Fremen aren't Fremen anymore. And right, so again, it's like you got to go back to like this nature aspect thing.
Well, you have that a little bit in Star Wars as well, right? And that's probably stolen a little bit from there, but
no, definitely
the more machine the Skywalkers become the
More
less
machine
human,
now than man.
right? And ultimately, in order to restore your humanity, you've got to get rid of the machine. Is the
You gotta
idea.
cut off your hand. The flesh back. And then Jabba the Hutt is a sandworm.
Ah.
He's Leto. He's
There's
Emperor Leto.
literally like that huge.
It's almost
I think, isn't he like the Harkonnen
Is that
leader? Don't you
huge?
think he's more like that?
Well,
Jabba
he's
the
not
Hutt?
taking enough baths for that.
No. If you knew, like, if the way that
Baron's
Leto,
always in the bathtub.
yeah, but he's always in a bathtub. Who's he? No, I think he's actually probably more like Darth Vader. I think he's more like has to be.
Mhm.
He's got to.
Yeah, he's hooked
so
up to stuff.
Yeah, he's got to be
Darth Vader who eats people.
Yeah, and in the book he's a pedophile.
Oh, that's nice.
That makes sense.
The Baron is a pedophile.
Yeah, he's pretty gross. Why not make him completely gross?
Yep, it's like
I'm
you
glad
hate
they
him in the
didn't
book.
put that in the movie.
Yeah,
I would not want to watch that.
I do think it's interesting though that because we mentioned Marxism and we mentioned all these modern movements, but ultimately, and you noted this, I think, Drake, when we talked about it, the just overt Islamic themes.
Oh yeah,
in the movie, because essentially that is basically Islam as well. That paradise will come about, not like Christians. Look, God will come back and deal with the wicked, and He'll destroy the murderers. So Christians don't sit here and do it, right? That we don't. We're not looking to have holy wars and force people into Christianity because we don't need to. It's through the gospel, and our job is to preach the gospel and transform people in that way or whatever. But in Islam, they participate in the killing of the wicked who are not Islam. And in that regard, then that's how paradise is brought about. So paradise is brought about when Islam takes over the world, and it takes over the world both through the preaching of salvation, through their religion, and through the killing of everybody else. And they participate in that. And in that regard, if you look at Islamic states who actually practice that, like, once again, did they bring about paradise? No, they bring about hell. It's impoverishment, it's slavery, it's murder. There's nothing peaceful about it. No one wants to live under an Islamic regime that actually practices that. And it's because it's not paradise, it's hell. And so I thought it was interesting how the movie, and I don't know if the books do this as well, but the movie, I think, has those themes over it. And I was curious, I was going to ask this of you, if the books do have the Islamic themes, because I would have thought in the time period he'd be talking more about what occurs with the more Marxist regimes, and people like Mao or Stalin, people of that nature, rather than Mohammed. But maybe it is. Maybe he's also got like Mohammed on his mind.
No,
as well.
Frank Herbert was more, because at one point I saw something that he was in an early draft, he was trying to compare Paul Atreides to Lawrence of Arabia in talking about the Muslim uprisings against the Ottoman Empire during World War One. So there was there was and there were interviews with him talking about this connection with why are there a lot of religions, kind of radical religions that come to power in desert environments, and trying to play off of that idea. So the Islam thing was definitely on his mind.
Yeah. I want to say I listened to an interview with Frank Herbert on this, and I think he is sympathetic as well to. He sees them as like the minority.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that are pushed down by the powerful religion. So like the Bene Gesserits are Rome. That's Rome. It's Roman Catholic. That's and then you have obviously the Fremen would represent Islam, And then you have like the fringe cults. You have the what are they called? Ixians, that are kind of in the background, like doing the illegal tech. They're kind of like the weird cults. Represent the weird cults. So, but
They got
the Lord,
Harkonnens that are like Eastern Orthodox.
yeah, the Harkonnen would be, I don't know what they would represent.
Probably just like your atheists or something.
Yeah, or like just nihilists, maybe. Just the complete opposite spectrum of religion, and how they're useful tools for religion. Because ultimately, the Harkonnen can't do anything themselves; they have to be used. And that's true for any non-belief system. They're the puppets. They're the ones that are used by any either like any nefarious religious system is going to use them for their purposes.
Because they don't believe in anything.
Right, because they're out for survival and power. So they attach to who's got it at the time. And then just like the Sith, right? Darth Vader's like, Luke, join me, we'll defeat the Emperor. The Baron was like, was planning on killing the Emperor himself and taking over. That was his whole point.
Yeah.
So they just latch on to whoever's powerful. But yeah, he did have sympathies for Islam, but he understood their violent nature too. Yeah.
Well, we exhausted Dune 2.
Yeah, we didn't even really talk about the movie then. Like, yeah, good cinematography.
We just got all the lore from Drake, all the deep dive information that I'm glad I didn't have to read.
Yeah. But I always think it's hilarious because I'll be like, I'll ask somebody like, who's the main character in Lord of the Rings? Frodo. Like, no, it's Aragorn. Who's the main character?
Well, Drake. Actually, it's Aragorn.
Oh yeah, thank you. See, I'm not that nerdy.
I thought there wasn't a main character. I thought the whole point is the main character was God and everybody else is playing a role.
No, because Aragorn is like he's the king. He's the king figure.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but he is just playing a role on the side, though, right?
Yeah, but he's the one that's like, if he falls, everyone else's role won't matter.
Oh, gotcha.
See, he's the
Messiah. He's the Christ figure.
Yeah. And then I ask, who's the main character in Dune? They'll say Paul. I'll be no.
Who's the main character in Dune?
Duncan, Idaho.
Now, why is Duncan the main character?
Yeah, that I don't understand. He embodies like,
because he's like rational.
He kind of embodies like the old human spirit, which is like questioning and actually honorable.
He's the Han. Well, no, he's not the Han Solo.
He's not the Han Solo
because the Han Solo is what's his face, who's the smuggler.
Yeah, Duncan Idaho in the movie comes off as like the bruh kind of,
yeah,
the bruh sesh. But in the book, he's like just a really respected warrior, really good looking. He's kind of like a David, actually. I would say he is like David, and he's kind of like the connection to the past, because when he dies, the Ixians grab him and they clone him, and he's not supposed to have any of his memories, but he gets them all back, and he keeps dying and clone, and he ends up having like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years of memories. And he ends up like in one of the books, he ends up trying to kill Leto, the worm guy, the
worm son,
because he's a tyrant, right? And he's like, this is wicked, you need to die. And Leto knows every time that Duncan's going to try to kill him, it's like a game. It's really weird, but Duncan is that connection to like the actual transcendent, meaningful humanity. And Yeah, and he's like the only redeemable character in the whole series. So,
All right. Well, there you have it.
well, this is our first Patreon. Hope everyone goes buys a copy of Dune.
They're like, I want my money back.
Yeah, I could have bought Dune with this money.
I want my money back.
I want my money back. But we do appreciate you, one supporter. It's probably my mom. You're one of our moms.
And she probably didn't even listen to the podcast. She probably just gave. And
Yeah.
You guys talked about Dune too much. Mom, it was about Dune. Well, if I would have known
It was in the title.
Well, now your mom's not going to give us any money because you made fun of her. So
There's no way she watched to the end of all of that.
She already fell asleep.
She's doing what we all wish we were doing.
That's right.
She's sleeping.
No, but we do appreciate your support. Catch us on another Beggars Canyon episode, and we'll talk to you soon.
Peace.
No, it's got to be something else.
All right, may the force be with you.
Oh, that's
May
lame.
the force be with you. Don't get eaten by a sandworm.
Cheers.
All
Later,
right.
Gator.
Later, Gator.
Later, Gators.
Don't follow the lights. All right. Bye, everyone. By Morgoth. I am your only future. But they don't like they're bred for war. So like Saruman like literally grows them in his
In like his vat.
yeah, in his
orc
vats,
vat.
right? And he like gives a sword to him and they go fight. That's like, and Uruk-hai are like better than the original orc or whatever because they can be in the daylight.
The reason why I like Moby Dick so much is, to me, there's a parallel with Genesis. So it's actually history. It's history that Melville he's interviewed. This actually occurred to a bunch of whalers.
Yeah.
And the survivors he interviewed.
Yeah.
And it became this book. But notice how he's writing this history. It's not, here's all the facts that happened. All right, the end. He's writing it because he wants to put meaning and a message to what has occurred.